Chapter 1. Come on. Hurry up. Quiet voice urged, barely able to contain his excitement as they walked toward the school. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, casting a warm glow over the path before them. Despite the urgency in his voice, Soul Reader knew they had time. The sun just set, she replied, stifling a yawn. But I want to get there early. Quiet voice insisted, his enthusiasm infectious. Soul Reader sighed inwardly, still weary from a restless night. After waking from yet another haunting vision, she had found it impossible to drift back into sleep. I wonder if I should tell Quiet Voice about my dark vision. Even as the thought crossed her mind, doubt trailed behind. No, he wouldn't understand. She envisioned their conversation vividly, picturing Quiet Voice's skeptical gaze. Are you sure it isn't just a nightmare and not a vision? He would inquire, his brow furrowing with worry but lacking comprehension. He didn't possess the powers of prophecy or mind-reading. He couldn't comprehend the weight that rested on her heart. I know it is a vision. As their conversation faded into silence, she pondered the burden of her gift. It would make my life easier if it was just a dream. Why don't you go back to the Ice Palace then? Someone snapped suddenly, separating her from her trace of thoughts. Oh, Soul Reader muttered under her breath. They had inadvertently taken a wrong turn, coming to a halt in front of a dilapidated house. The garden, once vibrant, now lay trampled, the flowers wilting in their defeated state. A shattered window gaped like an open wound, and the paint on the walls peeled away, exposing the tired wood beneath. The sight stirred her heart, an instinctive urge rising within her to restore the house to its former glory, despite knowing the task was impossible. This is the house of Foeslayer and Arctic. A strange couple indeed. The two were often whispered about among the dragons of the Nightwing Kingdom. Arctic, a runaway prince from the Ice Kingdom, had forsaken his homeland to be with Foeslayer. Yet, the romance had soured, and now they were trapped in a cycle of conflict. Soul Reader couldn't fathom why he had abandoned everything if he were so unhappy in the end. Rumors danced like shadows in the air, hinting that Arctic possessed animus magic, an ability to enchant anything to his will. Just the thought of it sent shivers down her spine. The mysteries surrounding this couple and their fractured life echoed the uncertainty that clung to Soul Reader, begging for answers in a world where shadows lurked just out of sight.
Fine.
I'll leave if you don't want me. Arctic roared, his voice echoing off the nearby houses, the irritation evident in every word. His scales shimmered ominously in the dim light, a reflection of his turbulent emotions. Hide. Soul Reader whispered urgently, her voice low and tense. Where? Quiet Voice asked frantically, his heart racing, oblivious to the necessity of silence in their current predicament. Her eyes darted around the garden, scanning for a place to conceal themselves. At the far edge, an overgrown bush loomed, its thorns stretching out like jagged sentinels, slowly taking over the once vibrant flowers that had flourished there. That bush over there, Soul Reader pointed with a claw towards the dense foliage that seemed to wrap around itself like a protective barrier. Gathering her resolve, she hopped into the bush, the sharp thorns snagging at her scales more than she had anticipated. The pricks of pain were minor compared to her relief at escaping Arctic. No knowing what he might have done if they hadn't hidden fast enough. Quiet Voice followed closely behind, though he winced as the thorns tangled in his wings. Arctic stormed out of the house, the sound of his heavy footsteps echoing in the stillness of the yard, grumbling incoherently to himself. His eyes swept across the area, pausing briefly at the bush where Soul Reader and Quiet Voice hid. Can't believe Foeslayer even planted that hideous thing, he muttered under his breath, scowling at the overgrown mess as if it had personally offended him. With a huff, he strode into the street, still ranting to himself, completely oblivious to the two dragons crouched in the bush. Other dragons passing by glanced at him with unease, quickly avoiding eye contact and moving away, not wanting to provoke his temper. Okay, Soul Reader, it looks like he's gone, Quiet Voice whispered, peeking cautiously out from their leafy shelter. Are you sure he's gone? Soul Reader replied, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through her. Yeah, I think so. Unless he decides to come back, he reassured her, though a hint of uncertainty lingered in his voice. But he shouldn't. They both crawled backward through the tangled mess of thorns, careful to avoid getting snagged further, before finally standing up. Leaves rustled as they brushed themselves off. Should we follow him? Soul Reader asked, glancing in the direction Arctic had taken. I don't know. Shouldn't we be at school right now? Quiet Voice responded, shifting nervously. Holy moons! We're gonna be late. Soul Reader exclaimed, her eyes widening in panic. I hope the teacher hasn't noticed we're missing yet. Quiet Voice added, his tone filled with concern. Without another moment's delay, they both took off running into the street, their legs moving swiftly and surely like a jackrabbit, sprinting from a hungry sandwing, eager to escape their predicament. I wonder where Arctic was going. Soul Reader thought briefly, but the question flitted away as quickly as it came. Probably to sulk around somewhere. She mused, shaking her head. As she focused ahead, her heart raced, and she nearly collided with a Nightwing merchant who had set up early, sorting through wares in preparation for the busy day ahead. Sorry. Soul Reader barely managed to sidestep him. It's fine. Everyone is always stepping on my talons, the merchant replied with a weary sigh, rolling his eyes at the chaos of the market scene unfolding around him. Soul Reader pivoted swiftly, her heart thumping as she had to leap aside again to avoid stepping on a customer's long, curling tail. Come on, gotta get to school. It's so busy. She gazed ahead, scanning the bustling street filled with vibrant market stalls and the lively chatter of shoppers, but Quiet Voice was nowhere to be found. A slight frown creased her brow as she shifted her focus, turning her head to peer behind her, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. He's not there either. Where could he be? A thought crossed her mind. He must have become caught up in the maze of vendors, distracted by the array of goods or perhaps engaged in conversation with someone. Frustration bubbled within her. I can't wait for him. With a resolute sigh, Soul Reader pivoted on her feet, determination etched across her features, and took off down the narrow road, weaving through the crowds of people as she hurried away from the market.